Today's episode of Filmmaker U is brought to you by our sponsors OWC. Go to owcdigital.com for all your filmmaking and computer needs. And it's also brought to you by our other sponsors, AJA. Make sure to check out aja.com so that you can see how they can help you in your post-production needs. Hi, I'm Gordon Burkell from Filmmaker U. At Filmmaker U, we create courses to deepen and diversify your existing skill set. You can learn more at filmmakeru.com, or of course follow us on Twitter at filmmaker_u. Every week we interview a film professional to discuss their work, and this week I'm joined by Animation Supervisor Seng Lau, whose work includes Dumbo, Maleficent, and more recently, Prehistoric Planet. Welcome to the show, Seng.
Hi, pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me.
I guess my first question is, how did you, because most people I talk to when they study animation, they sort of go in and they have to work the lower rungs for several years. So how did you make your move from wherever you started up to animation supervisor?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how far back to go, but I guess when I was a kid, the only thing I was really good at doing was drawing. So I knew I had to forge a career out of that specifically. So it was either, I knew early on it was either animation or a tattoo artist. And I figured there was less blood involved with animation. So I came into this industry wanting to do 2D animation. I went to school for it, but it was obviously a time when there wasn't that much 2D work out there. So I decided to go back and do 3D and realize I just immediately fell in love with it. I ended up doing television for a while, a little bit of animated features, quite a bit of time in video games before I made a break into the VFX world, and I've been here ever since. Yeah.
So now you've worked on Godzilla as one of your first sort of transitions to film, if I'm not mistaken.
That's correct.
So what were some of the challenges of bringing that iconic character to life in animation?
I mean, that was really fun. I mean, it's one of those things where I came from video games, and that was a project that really drew me, and that was the thing that made me say, you know what, even though I suppose I was a little bit more established in video games, I decided I have to work on this, and I basically quit a full-time, long-term contract to go onto I think it was, at the time, it was a 2-month contract, to just caution to the wind and try this out because the movie looked incredible. But yeah, there were a lot of things that we tried, to get this guy working. The number one thing was the scale. How do you make this thing feel large? And I think that's something that that first movie really did successfully. It just felt like 2 giant kaijus going at it.
Yeah.
There was this sense of scale, and that was always the biggest thing, the most important thing that we wanted to nail. And after that, it was all about, just people always made fun of Godzilla at the time that he had put on a little bit of weight, a little bit chunkier. And, that just had to happen because there was a lot of thought going into it about how it would just have to be a little bit more bottom heavy to sustain itself, and then a lot of the internet memes came on about how he put on a little bit of weight, our little chunky boy. But, once you have that sort of heavier lower body, how does that affect the way it moves? And how does the tail affect the way it moves? And there's just a lot of studies and tests that went into that. And more importantly, the shapes of the iconic Godzilla character. I mean, that's what we did to, I suppose, update the character. But there was a lot that went into it in terms of, okay, that's our approach at improving it, quote unquote. But what do we keep? And of course, it was all about the iconic silhouettes, the iconic sort of the badassery of Godzilla, which comes with the scale. So there was a lot that we had to absolutely stay true to in order to do the IP justice.
Well, I have to say, I never saw anyone talk about it as a chunky Godzilla. So this is the first time I've heard that. And I was there like a sign in the animation office that was like, don't make it like the 1999 one, whatever you do. Because I remember that one, I remember complaints about. Like people were like, it looks more like a Tyrannosaurus Rex and all that. But you guys seem to have really gone back to the traditional work.
I think, of course, everyone's always going to have an opinion, right? And there's no right or wrong opinion, but obviously the director Gareth Edwards had his vision, and it's our job to achieve that vision. So, but I will say, personally, I thought it was a good update. All it is at the end of the day is an anatomically correct Godzilla. As anatomically correct as you can get anyway. But there's at the end of the day, I'd be curious to see what some of these complaints are, because you can't make it look like a guy in a suit. You just can't anymore. You can't have these to scale arms and stuff. It would just look a bit goofy by today's standards. We know a little bit more about creatures and anatomy and all the rest of it by now. We just have to make it work in real life while maintaining the badassery of it all.
Did you, because you said you did some studies, so what were some of the studies? Were you studying particular lizards or particular animals? How they move?
As far as Godzilla goes, there were a lot of my animation supervisors at the time and the leads. They did a lot of initial studies about. There was a lot of stuff. I remember seeing Komodo dragons. I remember seeing just bear fights, the ferocity of it. But yet there's a very strange sort of feeling of balance when they push up against each other. Because even though they can stand on two legs, bears, it's not normal. And there's a sense of falling and catching each other. A sense of slowing down footage until it feels right. There was a little bit of everything in there, and that's and that again, as my first sort of foray into VFX, I feel like that was a really great learning exercise. It's like, how do you create a fantastic creature? Because even though it's make believe, it has to be grounded in reality. And I remember Godzilla being my first sort of foray into VFX. I learned so much from the guys there. I don't suppose I was a kid, but I was very wide-eyed and immediately just was wowed by the process at MPC and what they went through to achieve that final movie.
Were you a fan of Godzilla and Kaiju movies?
I think everyone is. I mean, I don't know. I can't imagine anyone not liking kaijus. I mean, it's just kind of cool, right? The idea of giant monsters fighting each other. It's like who would have an issue with that? I can't say. I've seen the original Godzilla movies a long time ago. I don't remember. They're all starting to blur together. If I'm being honest, but I just love the idea of it, right? Like I love. Pacific Rim was kind of fun.
I love Pacific Rim.
Yeah.
The sequel was cool. Okay, but the first one was just
the first one was cool. I wish there was more fighting and slightly less talking, but hey,
that's just probably because of budgets, right? They're like, oh
yeah.
Yeah. Now I do want to take it to Prehistoric Planet. How did you get involved with this project?
I mean, I can't say. The truth is, my boss came up to me and said, "This is your next project. Get ready," But I will say, yes. To me, this has been an absolute dream project. Yeah. And as soon as I understood what it was, my eyes just lit up. I was like, oh my God, yes, 100%. I started doing all the research. I'm just a big fan of the BBC Natural History Unit in
Yeah.
general. Like I just love like the Planet Earth series, Blue Planet, all that stuff. It just, if I'm being perfectly honest, Gordon, if I could do it all again, and if I was willing to take more chances, it would be me crawling through the jungle, filming monkeys, crawling through the Arctic, filming, just camping on the snow for a week at a time just to film that polar bear. To me, that would have been the dream job. I'm not complaining because I do enjoy my career immensely, but to me, that would have been the do-over. That's what I would have done if I had a second chance. I just love the way they showcase the natural world, the way they tell their stories, the filmmaking aspect of it, the adventure of it, the importance of it. Like I've done entertainment now in several forms. I've done video games and TV and cartoons. But at the end of the day, it's a form of entertainment. That's fine. Entertainment is good and important. The world needs entertainment. But when I see what the BBC Natural History Unit does, and other nature docs as well, it just feels like it's a little bit more important. There's just a little bit more there than just entertainment. Really makes you appreciate the world. I can honestly say the first time I saw Planet Earth, that's when I really took recycling seriously. Like, let's try not to mess this up, But yeah, that's how I first got involved, if I'm being honest. I was asked, I was like, heck yes, 100%, I'm all in. I started out doing both previs for the project and supervising the actual animation team as well at the same time. So there were some late nights there doing both things because it felt like working on two different shows. But yeah, I can say this has been an absolute dream come true. Filming with the BBC Natural History guys has been incredible, eye-opening stuff.
So what was the process? Like, did they have the script ready to go, and then you guys went and figured out, okay, we got to get these plates and build these animations? Or was it like rough ideas and then slowly building the script as you guys were sort of animating? Like, what was the process?
Yeah, so that's a good question. So it started out with storyboards, okay, and the storyboards, are done by the BBC producers, and these are all the same guys literally that usually go out and film the real stuff. So there's some real knowledge, real scientific knowledge, and real natural history filmmaking knowledge behind all of this stuff. These are the guys we work with. So the first thing they do is storyboard it, right? And just make sure that the behaviors are correct. And that's when our paleontologist consultant, probably saying that wrong, Dr. Darren Naish, that's Dr. Darren Naish will vet everything. And obviously he has his entire team of paleontologists and experts on the subject, making sure that the stories we tell are all based and grounded in what we know, to be true. So that's the first thing. It's like that storyboard phase has to pass, immediately, that scientific test. And then from there, we pre-visit, we do the really sort of rough cut and a lot of the animation team on the previs, they go in, Andy Jones and Adam Valdez, they put on the VR helmet. I would animate some stuff for them. The team would animate a bunch of clips, roughly speaking, rough lighting, rough environments. It's all just previs, just so we can know what to shoot, know what we're looking for, know what kind of lens we're using. Because that's the thing. That's what we don't know about in I guess Hollywood. That's what we've learned in this process. You can't just go out there and film whatever you want to film. Like, that's why Prehistoric Planet feels so authentic. We learn so much about that type of filmmaking. For instance, if you're filming a lion, you want, or more importantly, if you're filming a T-Rex, you don't want to go up there for wide lens and film this guy's feet, right? You're going to get you know what I mean? You want to use that 2000 millimeter lens. You want to get as far as possible. You want to be sat on a Jeep so the guy can gun it, if T-Rex shows some interest. That's the type of thing you use. We select that really long lens, and that's all evident in every single one of the shots that you see in Prehistoric Planet. Is how would these guys have shot a lion? We take that same approach. and then we shoot that T-Rex the exact same way, right? Not only that, but when these guys go on the field, and I've gone out in the film with these guys to shoot the planes, but they these cameras are heavy. These DOPs, these DPs, the director of photography, these guys are hardcore. They're fit. Not like me. But they carry these like 200-pound cameras with the head on 250 pounds. I feel like they're stomping around in the jungle and the desert and stuff. They get one of those things. The lens itself is so expensive and heavy. They get one camera. So when you shoot stuff for film, you're like, let's put a camera over there, let's put a B camera over there. You shoot it from different angles. Let's take one, we nailed it. Let's go over here, let's shoot over here. This looks cool. You just do whatever you want, basically, to a degree, right? Everyone has their rules and styles. But when you're shooting nature photography, it's not like that. You got one camera, right? So everything looks like it was shot from one camera. Yeah. You're gonna hurry up, you pick it up, go over there, and you're gonna run over there. But you're not gonna run all the way to the side because your animal's gonna move or the lighting's gonna be bad by the time you get there. They're all dealing with the natural world and natural light. So everything is really constricting. And again, that's part of so many reasons that Prehistoric Planet feels as authentic. I hope it feels as authentic as it does. We don't take any of that sort of stuff for granted. Just because we can doesn't mean we should, because the guys that go out and do it, they don't do that, right? They are limited. They have all the restrictions. There's so many other things too. You might fly a drone, and then, that drone might scare a flock of birds. I don't know. The camera, animals are inquisitive by nature. So if they see this guy here filming them, they'll be like naturally curious to what's going on there. They'll look at the camera. They're not breaking that third wall or that wall. It's perfectly legal for a lion to look straight into the lens. Yeah. And that's what we've done once in a while. We lay down trap cameras, because that's what the guys will do. Like, oh, this looks like a pretty good thing. There's a termite mound there. It's a good chance my armadillo or whatever, my anteater is going to attack this place right here. So set up a trap camera and get that shot. There's all the stuff that they do. If they're filming a bunch of herbivores, then they'll go right up there with a wide lens and film it. They're not going to be afraid of getting attacked necessarily. So anyways, there was a whole process about learning that type of filmmaking, learning the rules and being authentic, that we then in the previous world, Adam Valdez and Andy Jones and Adam Valdez, then put on the VR camera with all the animations that we provided, rough environments. And they went in there and they went like, okay, well, we're going to shoot over here like this. And all our shots were sort of laid out in a way that really made sense in that previous stage. Because what happens is after the previs is approved, and in that moment, even in the previs, even though the animation is very rough and basic, we are still exploring the correct behaviors and body mechanics of animals for Dr. Darnish to approve, even in that previs process. We then go out to the real world, and that's where I've had a lot of fun, as I went out to Namibia with these guys. And all sorts of locations and shot these plates because we knew exactly what we were looking for, because we've done the previous a certain way. We knew exactly what lens to use. We knew how long the shot was. We knew how big the dinosaurs were, so we walk out there with these sticks and these poles with a golf ball on it, just so we knew that giant Quetzalcoatlus was going to require this much frame, so we'd shoot a big, empty, beautiful backdrop of a sand dune, and then or wherever we were, all sorts of exotic locations. Guys went out to Jordan, Costa Rica, all sorts of places to shoot these plates that we knew would work because of our previs. And then my job was to then take those plates, come back, put the dinosaurs in them, and do them for real. Proper animation, to the smallest detail. And that's, that would be the process all the way up to where I come in with the team. I'm one of 3 animation supervisors on the project, and we all work closely together with Andy Jones, one of the directors on the project, and all the BBC producers as well. And there's and of course Dr. Darren Naish, always every step of the way we need to get that science check mark ticked.
Yeah.
Nothing we did was make believe ever.
Was there something that you learned about dinosaurs that you didn't know before, that you were like, holy crap, I didn't know that?
Yes, that was another really good learning experience. It's like we all know, we all think we know how dinosaurs move. And that was a real test, because I told my team to never use dinosaur animation as reference. Not one time do we ever use a dinosaur as reference. And as you know, animators should always use reference, always use reference.
Mm-hmm.
But we would never use a dinosaur as reference. We had to unlearn everything we thought we knew about dinosaurs from pulp culture. We're here to do it properly. And even though it might have been done properly before, that's fine, but we're here to do it again with the best knowledge that we have to date from science, with the best science, with the best technology, with the best, frankly, with some of the best artists in the world. We wanted a clean slate and unlearn and do it all from the fresh interpretation. And yes, we learned so much about dinosaurs. Where do I even start? For instance, a classic example that I always use when I have a new animator join my team is like, when you look at a triceratops and the way it would move, you would think that, like any large herbivore out there today, it would sort of lock its forearm when they're walking, like an elephant. It would lock this forearm would straighten out to sort of bear the weight. But it doesn't do that. When you look at the fossil record, the bone structure, even though these triceratops were about the size of an African elephant, same weight, their arms were always bent. Their forearms were always bent, always. And if you try to imagine an elephant walking around with its forearms bent all the time as its natural pose, it doesn't make sense to me. As an animator, that doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't look right. It's not a comfortable distribution of weight. It looks like you're doing a push-up at all times and walk around doing a push-up, Now, of course, as an animator, I always thought to myself, look, it's not like there's not animals out there that always have their arms bent, I'm trying to do it with my camera.
Yeah.
But if you can imagine a crocodile's forearms always bent, but they're off to the side, and they kind of throw it out like that, bam, like that. That's how a crocodile is, right? Yeah. So I tried doing that with Triceratops, and Dr. Darren Naish looked at it and was like, yeah, that's fun. I can see why you tried that. But, again, you have to look at the bone structures. The bone structure says that the arms have to be bent, but the trackways tell me, the trackways being the fossilized footprints of Triceratops. So if your feet were off to the side, then of course your footprints would be off to the side. But it actually shows, and not only would they all be off to the side, but their arms would be oriented like this, right? So they're actually super close together, and their hands are oriented this way. So no, they did not swing out to the side. Their arms are always bent, and I'm just like, but it looks so weird, dude. Like, how do you even negotiate an obstacle? How do you climb over a log? And Dr. Darren Naish would never let us take the easy way out. It's like, well, how would a crocodile climb over a log? I'm like, yes, all right. And it took, that's a good example of something that, we've seen Triceratops animated. Have they been animated correctly? That's a different story. And we've ended up with something that, frankly, looks incredibly strange, but it matches the science, And going back to the Godzilla thing, when you're animating a fantastic creature, you still have to ground it in reality. You still have to base it off of real life animals and creatures and physics. Like, for instance, when you animate, a dragon, the rules of flight, they don't change, right? You have to decide immediately, okay, well, is it a bird wing, is it a bat wing? Because that's going to completely change the dynamics of the movement. Yet the laws of aerodynamics don't change, gravity doesn't change, so you have to make it believable. You have to look at reference still when you animate a dragon. The fact that it breathes fire doesn't matter, but if it flies in a way that doesn't work, everyone's still going to call you on it, right? Similarly, if, like on, when I worked on Lion King or something, we just have to look at thousands of hours of lions, right? Because everyone knows what a cat looks like, right? So if you get one smallest detail wrong, you're going to get called out on it. It's going to look weird. It's going to look like the uncanny valley, right? So you've got two ends of the spectrum when it comes to animation. Fantastical creatures, which are still need to be grounded in reality, but frankly has a little bit of leeway because no one really cares that how a dragon moves as long as you believe it, because they're not real. And then the other side of the spectrum, it's like, that's a lion, it better move like a lion. That's it, end of story. Every tiny detail, Dinosaurs sat right in the middle. And that was an incredible challenge because we don't have that reference. We don't have that one-to-one reference like a lion would. Yet on the same token, it's not fantastical. These were real. We have to base this on science, or this entire project doesn't work. It's not worth it. We shouldn't do it. So how do we do that? How do we, like, every single creature, like the Triceratops, was its own puzzle to solve. And that was really fun and really challenging and really rewarding at the same time. I think we did about 95 different creatures for the series. Every single one had a different, something strange that I didn't expect, that Dr. Darren Naish would enlighten me with. The way a T-Rex, if you look at the popularized T-Rex, if it's the little useless arms, they kind of hold them like this, right?
Yeah.
That's incorrect. Again, if you look at the fossil record, they kind of hold it like this for some reason, like holding a little, almost like they're cradling an American football, or a rugby ball. It's a very strange thing. It's not what you expect because, again, popular science says they walk around like this. It's not what they do. They do this really weird almond shape, among many things, really. At the same time, there are animals, like one of my favorites, the Mononychus, where, frankly, it's very bird-like. And we all know birds today are, in fact, living dinosaurs. So there were some dinosaurs where you could just take that one-to-one reference, like a peacock jumping around or something. And it was roughly the same size, same shape, minus the tail. And you can apply that one-to-one with a Mononychus, if you wanted to. So yeah, I learned a lot about dinosaurs. I mean, frankly, even remembering all the names of these creatures, I feel like I should get a pat on the back,
Yeah. Now, I have one last question for you. We've been stuck in this pandemic over 2 years now, and depending on where you are in the world, you might be in quarantine, you might be, having to stay inside. Is there a show or movie you discovered on a streaming network that you think people should check out?
There's, definitely Prehistoric Planet. You should check that out. But I would say as an animator, I fell in love with Arcane. I'm not even a big League of Legends fan or player or anything. I didn't know anything about League of Legends, but when I watched that show, I was blown away by the beauty of the animation and the beauty of the characters and storytelling, all of it. Arcane, League of Legends on Netflix, definitely hats off to those guys, just in terms of raw animation from one animator to another. I tip my hat to those guys.
Well, thank you so much for letting me interview you today.
No worries. Oh, actually, if I could go one more.
Sure.
Severance on Apple TV. That
was
really good. That was mind-boggling as well. It just kept me on the edge of my seat. Now I'm just dying to see what happens on the second season. So yeah, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you so much. And that's it for this week, everyone. Make sure to check us out at filmmakeru.com. And of course, follow us on Twitter at filmmaker_u. I'm Gordon Burkell. Thanks for watching. Today's episode of Filmmaker U is brought to you by our sponsors, OWC. Go to owcdigital.com for all your filmmaking and computer needs. And it's also brought to you by our other sponsors, AJA. Make sure to check out aja.com so that you can see how they can help you in your post-production needs.